with a lot of theories around, but not being true, but still being taught, with what mindset should I approach them while studying economics so I won't get lost in them? And maybe a follow-up practical question, is there an economic textbook that you could or would recommend to a current student of economics?
Okay. First question. You should approach every model, every theory with enthusiasm, because they are all beautiful, independently of whether they're useful, toxic, whatever. They're all beautiful, okay? And so, you know, you just have some fun while you approach them and you study them. There are two ways in which you should be critical of every theory. Two ways. They're very different and equally important. The first one is internal criticism. That is, say, okay, so what are your assumptions? Give me your assumptions. Okay, I'll take them for granted. I won't challenge them. Now let's see whether your conclusions are logically the result of a process beginning with your assumptions, because a lot are not. There is a lot of sleight of hand in economics. Many economists, I'm afraid, especially the second-rate ones, not the first-rate ones. The second-rate ones, they're a bit like, you know, cardinals, who are, you know, more papist than the Pope, right? And they cut corners. And you can easily expose them and you say, look, what you just said does not follow from your own assumptions. I'm not going to criticize your assumptions. That's really very important. An aside regarding this, one of the greats of economics, of neoclassical economics, is of course Kenneth Arrow. You've heard of Arrow-Debré theorems. If you've studied economics, Arrow's impossibility theorem. Kenneth Arrow was one of the first to win the fake Nobel Prize in economics, the Nobel Prize in economics, let's call it. An unbelievable mind, an unbelievable mind. I remember he taught me a huge lesson. It was 1991. I was visiting New York, and he was already an old man, and he was giving a talk at NYU. I'm not exactly, NYU, Columbia, I'm not exactly sure. Small seminar room, about, 15, 20 professors. I was the youngest in there at the time. And so, he fills all the boards full of equations. One of the professors, it was an academic seminar, says, Professor Arrow, I think that 3.1, and especially the lemma that corresponds to that, probably indicates that a lump sum tax would not be as efficient as a pro rata tax. And Arrow looks at him and says, my dear chap, you are confusing that which is interesting with that which is useful. This is interesting. It is not useful. If you try to apply it to tax policy, you'll be dangerous. Okay? So that's something you can do. It's fun doing it. The second kind of criticism is external criticism. To say, hang on a second, what's this assumption of yours here? You're assuming that people maximize something called utility. Let's look at it philosophically. Does it correspond to introspection? Is this what I do in life? This is a more philosophical critique. Okay? Every theory has its assumptions. All of them are questionable. So, criticize the way in which assumptions are used in order to derive theorems, and then criticize the assumptions. That's the answer to the first question. As for textbooks, look, will it sound awful if I tell you that at some point I had to write a textbook because I couldn't answer that question?